Hi everyone! Today I'm going to be showing you how to make some polymer clay eyes in a cane. They'll be similar to this, just in a different shade this time. Because of the way I'm making them, they'd be really good for dragons, unicorns, other kind of fantasy creatures. In order to do this, you're going to need some polymer clay in a variant of colors. So here I've got some light orange, slightly darker, and red. You're also going to need black and some white, a scalpel or a razor blade, and a pasta machine. You can also use this with a rolling pin, but it would just take you a lot longer. Now, for this, since I'm doing fantasy, I'm giving these eyes a diamond or slit pupil. So what you do for this, as you see I've already done it, just cut a diamond shape out of your black polymer clay and then use some of the lightest color to smush around it so it's in a circle. This would be the spot that's closest to the pupil in the eye. And for this, you're going to want to condition your polymer clay just by rubbing it between your hands, squishing it up, and then forming it into 3 triangles or however many triangles you are doing colors. This would be really good in like purples and reds and pinks. I've got a lot of pink ones. And slightly squish them together so they're like this. And this is where we're getting out our pasta machine. Sorry about my camera wobbling. This is my first time using this setup with my camera mount, and it's very, very wobbly. So hopefully you don't get motion sick watching this video. Okay, so you're going to start on the largest setting on your pasta machine, and you're going to put polymer clay through so the triangles are this way. Don't do it this way or else you're gonna screw up the entire thing. And first pass through, probably not gonna notice any blending. It ends up like this. So what you do is you fold it in half, squish it together, and then you're gonna put the folded side in first. This will mostly help get any trapped air bubbles out. Because if you have trapped air bubbles in the polymer clay, they'll split when they're in the oven baking, and you'll end up with cracks in your design. And we're just going to keep doing this process, folding and passing through the largest setting a few times. So this part of the video is going to get really boring because it's just going to be me passing it through. So what I'm going to do is tell you what I love so much about polymer clay. I've only recently started using it, but I've been wanting to for a very long time. And I recently started using cold porcelain clay, which you can make yourself with glue and cornstarch. And it's an air dry clay. And while it's really fun for practicing, it's not so great for doing any kind of larger pieces. If you're doing small things like little flowers or that sort of thing, cold porcelain is okay for that. But the larger the pieces you get, the harder it's going to dry. And it also dries really quickly in your hands on the outer part of the design. So you can't really spend much time making stuff. Polymer clay, you can use it all day. I honestly, I just sit here and I squish it in my hands because it's very great for stimming. So if you're like me and you have autism, it's a really, really great way to just like sit and have something to do with your hands because it doesn't dry out in the air. You can sit there and squish it together all the livelong day and you don't have to worry about it. As you can see, we're starting to see a bit of the blend here. So we're just going to pass this through on the largest setting a few more times. And it's starting to get a bit narrower. If you get any gunk on it from your pasta machine, just wipe it off gently like that, or you can use your scalpel to kind of carve away any of the goo. Alright, I think this might be the last pass I do through the largest setting. Yes, it is. Because you can see the gradient is starting to actually form a bit more. So what I'm going to do now is put it in the middle setting at about 4 or 5. My machine's actually backwards, so most of them, the largest is the 9 and the thinnest is the 1. Mine has the numbers on backwards, so the thinnest is 9 and the largest is 1. So we're going to pass it through here, and this is where it's going to start getting thinner instead of just blending. It's going to still blend, but it's blending and getting thinner at the same time, as you can see. If you have this where it gets kind of bulged out at the top, that's fine. It's not going to matter in the final design. And pass it through. And like I said, on this part here, I'm using it in the middle setting. So whichever is the middle setting on your pasta machine, use that. On mine, it's 4 or 5. And you can see here we've got a bit of the gunk from it. And you just scrape it off with your fingernail. It's okay. Everything's fine. And here, because I've got the large bulge, I'm only going to fold it there instead of folding it in the middle like I have been. Because this is where we're reaching the point where we're almost done doing the gradient. See how nice that looks from the light orange over to the red? And from here, we're going to put it at the narrowest setting. On some machines it'll be 9, on others it'll be 1. Doesn't really matter, just get the narrowest setting. I told you this part is boring because it's just me passing this stuff through a machine. So, how's everybody today? Okay. See, again, we've got this very, very large bulge out here, and that's fine. What we're going to do now is, as you can see, the way the gradient goes, variant, whatever you want to call it. So, I'm going to fold that in. And you're going to roll up your piece, making sure it goes even. And you can stretch it out here until you get like a rope that looks like this. And we're going to pass one, possibly final time, through the lowest setting. And I'm apparently going to break my entire setup. Because I'm graceful like that. And you see it's coming in a very thin ribbon at the bottom. Normally I would have this clamped to my work table, but if I did that I wouldn't be able to do the video. So, there we go. We're done with our pasta machine. So, it's just going over there for now. Yes, I'm working on my bed. So, we're left with this very long ribbon of gradient clay. It's okay if it breaks. I mean, we don't want it to, but if it does, just smush it back together. And see how long that is? So what we're going to do is we're going to take the inner part of the eye, and again, this is just a diamond of black clay using some of the lightest clay remnants. You can see how it has these gaps in it. It's because I just took extra cut-offs and smushed it in together to make it kind of a circle. So we're going to set it down on the end, and we're just going to roll it up. And roll it up some more. Keep rolling. You can see it's starting to show the difference between the inner layer of the eye moving towards the outside of it. Kind of like the eye of Sauron. Sauron? Probably gonna have a bunch of Lord of the Rings people freaking out on me there because I said it wrong. And you can see here where it's been kind of pulled thinner, the clay. And yeah, see, it breaks, which is fine. I mean, it's not ideal, but it's easily fixed. Just squish it back on. That's all you gotta do. And I'm gonna take this last little bit off because there's gunk on it and I don't want to have to clean it off. Okay. And there is your iris. And if it's kind of folded in like mine is, just squish it out. No big deal. Now, what you do, gently and evenly working the whole way around it. My camera's shaking, sorry about that. Evenly squish it out, turning it around in your hand. You can see it's already starting to get much wider, which is another thing I really, really love about polymer clay, is because you can make these canes really, really thick and then keep stretching them out until they're like the size of a pea. You roll it on your surface or between your hands. Try to avoid doing it in between your hands here like this, because if you do it in the hollow of your hand, your item will end up kind of domed with the narrower bits at the side. Alright. And we're going to take our little scalpel and we're just going to slice off the rough ends. And there we have our eye with the slit pupil in the center. And now if you're going to be doing the white around the eye, you can use obviously white that's been conditioned. And again, condition, you just roll it between your hands until it's softened. For this sort of eye, a really cool thing you could do is, instead of doing white for around the eye, you can do black. If you're going for like a demonic kind of look. Or you can do more red for a dragon. Green if you're doing some sort of fairy creature. As you can see, I'm just squishing these on and then just snipping off the excess with my fingernails. And after you've got the whole thing covered, which I almost do now, there we go. flatten it so it's all even, and then again, roll between your hands. You're going to want to be kind of firm here because you want to make sure you don't have any air bubbles trapped in, because like I said earlier, air bubbles in the oven, not good. And then you roll it and roll it and roll it and roll it until you have something that's kind of like this. Or I've also got it in blue. And here with this blue one you can really see how it goes from dark around the edges to almost white near the pupil. And this one doesn't have the slit pupil, but that's because I was using it for something else. Now, what you can do with this one's actually pretty thick, which would be okay if you're doing like dolls or something like that. But if you're doing like a full figure, stop shaking, you can actually just use a very small amount of it and then work it between your fingers till you get much smaller, and you'll still be able to see that detail of the color change in it, just on a much smaller scale. And then when you're going to make the actual eye itself, cut off a thick portion of it, about as thick as it is wide, give or take. And then you're going to very gently smush down the sides with your fingertip or a stylus. I like using my fingertips because I can actually feel the dome of the eyeball until you've got something rounded like this. And then, depending on the thickness, you'll bake it in the oven for 10 to 15 minutes at 275 degrees. And there you go. You've got a custom-made eyeball that you can use in a variety of colors, and then put them directly into your model. There you go. Hope you had fun watching this. Take care.